So, oops, I forgot to start the music. Here I am with another very professionally planned video, totally unplanned. Yeah, I'm due. I'm due to do a video. I'm sitting at home doing nothing. Last few days have been horrible. I don't think the sun's come out at all. It's pretty, oh, and the music didn't start. Come on, let's go. Come on, there we go. Yeah, we were supposed to have a nor'easter, at least in my town. It didn't get too bad. It was just rain, a lot of rain. It's still raining out there. No sun for 3-4 days now, so it's pretty gray out. I actually have my blinds open, and I hope the music, once again, the music mix here, using my mixer is always a bit of a hit and miss. So I always do some test runs, and then it doesn't quite come out the way I anticipated. So what I thought I would do today, without any more planning than about 10 minutes of planning, you see that shelf back there? Man, I gotta get the hand thing together. See, that's Brainy. There's a light behind him, and right next to him are a stack of albums on the top shelf. Those are very special albums in that those are the only vinyl things that I have that have not been released on CD. So I keep them in their own special spot, and every once in a while something will finally be released on CD, and it comes off the shelf and goes in with the rest of my regular albums. And I'm happy to do that because it means I can get them on CD. So the last few things that were up there that I took down recently because they came out on CD, even though I don't actually have them all, Jack DeJohnette's Inflation Blues album from ECM came out as part of a set of his special edition band, so that was up there for a lot of years. I took that down, and a couple John Abercrombie quartets on ECM, his first quartet that he had with Richie Byrock on piano and George Mraz on bass and Peter Donald on drums. Those finally came out as a 3-disc set. So off the shelves they came. So I pulled a bunch off for lack of anything else to do, really. And this way I can do a video that's less than 17 hours. So what I did is I didn't count them. I have about a third. I could maybe do this 3 times. And I know that eventually, even though I'll leave the video up, this is going to be old because some of this stuff will hopefully see the light of day on CD. Who knows nowadays, because they might end up just going the download route and not even release them on CD. Forgive the mess. I didn't do any cleaning before, like I prepared this video. So right there you see, that's my exercise bike. It's got like my clothes that I put on when I'm on the bike, just draped over there. The keyboard is right to the right there. There's the keyboard. My hi-hat's in the house, taken out of the garage. I was going to record something on it. I don't even recall what I was going to record on it now. And my acoustic guitar. Oh, the bad news with my electric guitar with the snapped neck, can't be repaired. That's the guitar that has my guitar synthesizer on it. So I still have the guitar because the pickup for the guitar synthesizer has to be pulled off. And so I didn't have to pay for his attempt to repair it. I ended up trading in the only other electric guitar I had, which was an old Telecaster that was kind of beat up. I ended up only getting like a $75 value of it, and had I sold it privately, I could have probably got more money, but it did need a lot of work, and it was old, and the paint had been stripped on it by the original owner and stuff, and I don't want to deal with selling things on Craigslist or eBay or something like that, and then sending it out and having people say, oh, it doesn't work, or it's not like what you said it was, and then having to deal with all that. So it's the first time in my life since I was 13 years old I don't have an electric guitar. So I need some coffee though. So what I did, I'm not a vinyl collector, so at any moment I may be kicked out of the VC, but I took I keep on discovering vinyl I left behind. in my old house, I had a basement that was the vinyl. That was mostly my rock and roll stuff that I left behind. I had no interest in it. And it was really worn, and it was old, and it was from the 70s, and, you know, beat up from being played a lot when I was young and stuff. So I left those behind, only to find out there was things mixed in there that I forgot about, that I looked for here, and now I realized they must have been in the basement. I didn't take them, so I should have gone through it a lot more carefully. Pulsar was one of them, Strands of the Future, which was an album which Vinyl Spin Jeff actually bought for me and sent to me. Now that's available on CD, but that's great cover art on there. Lowell Cream and Kevin Godley, two members of 10cc, did this fantastic album called Consequences. It was a triple record set, and I didn't even have any 10cc albums, but I had read about it in a music magazine when it first came out around 78. Pretty sure it was 1978. And it's almost like a movie. It's a great like 2-hour album. Got re-released on CD, so I do have the CD, but the box set had this huge booklet with it, and was on 3 discs with nice sleeves they were in, and I thought I had brought that album upstairs, and then I went looking for it, and I don't have it here, which is really sad, because that's more of a visual thing. But that got re-released on 2 CDs, and I'm going to do a video on that album, because that's one of the few albums that fall in the rock category that I still listen to. Even though there's almost no rock on there. It's like a movie. Nobody would ever make an album like that nowadays. So what I have here is, like I said, I'm not really a vinyl collector. I buy things on vinyl only because now they are things that have not been re-released on CD. And so I keep a lot of my vinyl, even the things that I do have on CD, because of the packaging in a lot of cases, or I just can't bear to part with them. Some of those Wes Montgomery albums and the Miles Davis albums from the 1950s, the Prestige era especially, that came packaged in those twofer. They got repackaged. These are the individual albums that got packaged in twofer packages, like in the 1970s, as a way to resell them. I picked up a lot of those in the days when I was first getting into jazz, and they have fantastic liner notes inside the gatefolds of those albums, about, you know, writing from a 20-year later perspective of the historical significance of those albums and those sessions. And you know, even though I've since bought the music on CD, they don't include that information in a lot. You know, in a lot of cases, you know, it's pretty much the music and the recording dates and the personnel, without those great write-ups that those twofer discs had. So, you know, there's a lot of reasons why I would, you know, still hold on to vinyl, even in the case that I have things on CD. But I'm not looking to buy any new vinyl. You know, if somebody nowadays, they're starting to come out with new releases again on vinyl and CD, and I'm sticking with the CDs all the way. But here's a few things, something I posted recently, because I'm very upset that this has not become available on CD. Percussion Profiles. This is an ECM album, which I bought sealed new for $3.99, I'm happy to say. It says Japo ECM. And it's funny because ECM Records, this was recorded in September 77, which came out in 78. And it very much, you know, is from the ECM era. So I'm a little, never fully understood why some of these in the ECM era still came out as Japo/ECM records. But the strange thing is, it seems that those are often the ones that are not re-released on CD. So it must be a legal thing with who owns the rights to the albums. This was a compositional idea. Sorry for the glare. I have my windows open. I'm fighting between my window and the computer screen glare. This is a George Gruntz composition and concept and idea, which I posted this whole album up. And I think I got some copyright strikes on it, but not to the extent that I was asked to take it down, or I don't think any of the audio was blocked. Why should it be? It's not available. You know, that's the things. The things I'm putting up, albums to listen to, are things that you can't buy. You know, apart from old used vinyl, or cassettes or whatever. So this is George Gruntz and a whole star. if you're a European music fan of jazz, certainly, Pierre Farver, Freddie Studer, Dom Amramano, Dave Friedman, Jack DeJohnette, and George Gruntz, who I only learned after I posted this that George Gruntz passed away a couple years ago, sadly. I would have liked for him to know that I was putting this up and that people were listening to it and liking it. Interesting album, for an all percussion album. It's not really rhythmic a lot of the times. It's quite abstract, which I really dig. And here's another album that I put up that a lot of you are going to be familiar with. The Roger Kellaway Cello Quartet. Something that there's a lot of American jazz fans, specifically, that love this album and wondering why the hell hasn't this come out on CD? It's on A&M Records. Maybe that's why. Sometimes you can't win. You have a small label that is no longer in existence, so often that's the reason why CDs are not re-released of these old albums, because the record company doesn't exist anymore. And then here's the other end of the spectrum. You have a huge record label like A&M Records that this is on, and A&M is so big and they have so many top-selling pop artists that I guess they can't be bothered to go back into their collection of titles that aren't going to sell a whole lot and buy them any new yachts or anything. So they don't bother to re-release them on CD. This is this is recorded in one day, November 14th, 1973, with Roger Kellaway on acoustic piano, Edgar Lustgarten on cello, Chuck Domanico on upright bass, and Emil Richards on percussion. And the percussion is a lot of marimba specifically. So no real drum kit. Really nice session. I put this up in full. And a number of months ago, and just yesterday, day before, somebody made a comment about, oh, thanks for putting this up. I knew eventually somebody would put this album up on YouTube, and I've loved it for years, and I actually had to buy it. I was so set on getting this damn thing recorded that I had to buy a second used copy of it, because on 2 tracks there was a skip that I could not get rid of. And so I ended up going onto eBay, I think it was, and buying a second used copy just to get those 2 tracks copied over, so that I could have the whole album in full without skips or anything. It wasn't perfect. There's still some vinyl noise on there, but this is on my channel to listen to. A nice, not maybe slightly chamberish, not really a Euro kind of jazz thing, but with the lineup of piano and cello and upright bass and most of the time marimba. It's a really nice album. And to what extent you can hear the music that's playing in the background, this is it. This is an excellent ECM. Well, no, again, I think this is an ECM Japo. No, it was just an ECM. This is one of those ECM albums that I bought shortly after it came out by a guy, Adelhard Reudinger. And this was an album, and he's a bass player, an upright bass player, and a damn good one. And this album is so reeks of ECM from the era of the late 70s, early 80s. Recorded in November 1981. And never released in this country. I had to buy this as an import because there was a handful of ECMs at around the time of the early 80s when they switched distribution here in America. I mean, initially, just about everything they put out in the 70s came out on vinyl in America, almost everything. And when they switched in the late 70s, early 80s, they switched their distribution. And it seems like the distribution they had wasn't as good. I think the Polydor was distributing these. And it seems like they picked and chose what albums would come out here in America. And this was not one of them that came out because there was no names involved. Nobody knew who Adelhard Reudinger was, I guess, here. And so they figured it wouldn't sell a lot of copies. So I had to find an import copy. There's the master. Fantastic bass player. And he pretty much composed all the music on here, with the exception of a couple of group improvised things. I only knew one musician on here, actually. Adelhard Roedinger on bass, a guy named Heinz Sauer, S-A-U-E-R, on saxophone, Bob Deegan on acoustic piano, Harry Pepple on guitar. Now this is where I first heard Harry Pepple, and many years later, it wasn't until the CD era, like maybe within the last 10 years, that I actually found some albums of Harry Pepple as a leader. He did do one for ECM as well, and it was another one that I don't think was released in America when it initially came out. I think he did two for ECM, and one of them at least never came out in America. The other one I completely missed, and that's one that I bought as a download that I didn't think had come out on CD, but apparently did for a really short window, and I missed it. Harry Pepple turned out, I like his guitar playing. Kind of clean but modern tone. Kind of like a cross between a Pat Metheny and a more mainstream jazz guitarist. Based on this album, I really liked his playing. His own stuff is a lot more avant-garde and experimental. A guy named Werner Herchner on vibraphone and marimba, and that's a really big part of this album. It's got most of the rhythmic thrust of this album actually comes from the vibraphone and marimba, I think. Really lovely. And there's Ina Kemenes, an American, oddly enough, on voice, who I knew. I was aware of her work from ECM's Bar Phillips album. Fell in love with her voice the first time I heard it. Didn't know until recently that she was an American from California, no less. I don't know how she got mixed in with these guys, with all these European musicians. And the last musician, it's a pretty big band, is Michael DePasqua on drums and percussion. That's how I found out about this album. I saw in New York the Jan Garber Group around 1982 or 83, right after the Paths and Prince album came out from the quartet, the Jan Garber Quartet. And on that album, Jan Christensen was the drummer. But when they went to tour behind the album after it got released, about 8 or 9 months after it was recorded, Mike DePasqua was the drummer. And he became like the ECM house drummer for a few years there in the early 80s. Sadly, he quit drumming. He quit playing. And only came out recently to do some work with one of Eberhard Weber's projects that he did after his stroke. And then said again that he wasn't going to play anymore. So I hope he changes his mind. He's one of the few players that can play in that style, that kind of abstract, not too heavy on the beat, but knows, basically uses the drum kit as a dynamic tool to make the music more or less intense, and it works. That's what this music is all about to me. And I saw him play in the Jan Garber Quartet in New York, got to talk to him after the gig, and he told me about this album that he had just recorded. So that was something. Okay, so which means it would have had to have been sometime after November '81 when this was recorded. So I must have seen him probably early in '82, I guess. He told me about this album. I very quickly forgot the name. That's a great cover too. Very quickly forgot the name of the artist. But then I kept on looking and took several trips into New York, which I don't do anymore, to haunt the record shops, and I did come across this one. And when I looked at it, I realized, oh, this must be the one that he was talking about. And again, it was always surprising at that time to find one of those few albums that weren't getting released in America that were ECM albums. So regardless of who they were, I would snatch them up. Here's another one that didn't make it over here initially. Came over as an import. Same time period. May 1983 this was recorded, so it's a couple years after the Adelhard Roedinger album. Alfred Harth, which I think a lot of people have heard this. This is a real good one. And along with the Adelhard Roedinger, which was one of the first albums I ever copied into my computer to make a CD burn up digitally because I loved it that much. This was another one. This Earth. This didn't make it over here, and it didn't make it over onto CD either. And this was a special import because, I don't know, I guess they figured it wouldn't sell over here. Very similar in terms of direction to the Adelhard Roedinger album. Alfred Harth is a saxophone player, plays bass clarinet as well. It's got Paul Bley on piano. The great Trilok Gurtu on percussion. Hell of a band. Maggie Nichols on voice. Who does that, the wordless vocal thing. Similar to Ina Kemenes and other people that I love. And the Bar Phillips on bass. Absolutely. Him and Eberhard Weber are just my two top favorite guys. So it's a hell of a band, and it's a great album. And it's got that kind of abstract thing, and it's got, percussion as opposed to drum kit. And I think Trilok Gurtu must have been quite young when he made this too. I first heard him on Bar Phillips' 3-Day Moon from 1978. And there's starting Trilok, Bar Phillips, Paul Bley is in the back. I guess that's the main man right there, and I guess that's got to be Maggie Nichols on voice. So I'm guessing that guy, that must be Alfred Harth, because I'm not familiar with what he looks like. So, May 1983, still waiting for it to come out on CD. Here's another one. I think this is I'm pretty sure, because I got it up there in my collection, that this is the Art Landy and Rubisa Patrol album that didn't make it onto CD yet. The other album did, Desert Marauders. I don't know why one album makes it onto CD and the other one doesn't. They were both on ECM. Art Landy on piano, Mark Isham, of course, on trumpet flugelhorn, Bill Douglas on bass and the flute, and Kurt Workman on drums. I think all of these I've copied into my computer to make CDRs of, because I just can't live without the music. All the tunes are written by Art, and there's one track written by Mark Isham on here. Just another one of those inexplicable things why it's not released here. June 1977, why it's not released on CD. Kind of related. Here's one. A Polydor came out. Did I show this? This is a Polydor album, which I guess would be an American. I guess that'd be an American label. A Polydor I know is in Europe. I think I showed this. Jazz Festival Hamburg '75, which is Polydor at the time were releasing the ECM albums in America, which may explain this single disc, made up entirely of people that were signed to ECM at the time. It's got the Thomas Stanko Unit doing one track. All these tracks are 10 to 11 minutes long. Eberhard Weber's Colors doing one track live. These are all live tracks from the New Jazz Festival Hamburg in 1975. Terje Ripdel's Odyssey, and Dave Liebman's Lookout Farm doing one track, between 10 and 11 minutes long. This one, even though it was sealed when I got it, the vinyl was always kind of noisy. But again, this is one that, could, being on Polydor, I don't think this is ever going to see the light of day on a CD, unfortunately. It's a little raw, to be honest. I don't think it's as good as the studio recordings. But I think most of these are outdoor sound, and it was 75, so the live recordings were, especially of electric type bands, were a bit raw back then. But great. It'd be nice to have that on CD. Totally unrelated to any of those before, swinging into a different thing. More of a mainstream jazz thing, but I love this album. My favorite Jimmy Rainey album, guitarist. American jazz bebop, I guess you'd say guitarist. I love that cover too. I just bought this off the shelf, totally unheard of. It looked interesting. It was a trio, Richard Davis on upright bass and Alan Dawson on drums. Jimmy Rainey on electric guitar. Very clean, very, but he's one of those guys, like a Jim Hall, Wes Montgomery, right in there. I think he's passed away now. I should have checked. He does a couple standards like Autumn Leaves, an Irving Berlin tune, The Best Thing for You Is Me, Oscar Hammerstein, Nobody Else But Me, but he also does a couple originals, a couple tunes that he wrote. Recorded, and here's another album, recorded in one day, July 21st, 1974. You know, this was a blind buy for me at the record store. I was looking for some really nice mainstream jazz. I think I found this album quite some time ago. I could be wrong. I think I may have found it up on YouTube, but I'm not sure. And I think the reason this hasn't been released on CD, and I've heard other Jimmy Rainey things which I love, but I haven't found anything that I liked as much as this album. And this is on PA USA label, which was essentially a jazz label out of Los Angeles, California, but I think they were very short-lived. There's the little logo, the PA USA. And I think they were a small independent label, primarily jazz. Didn't last to the CD era, I don't think, which may be why this didn't get a CD. Really, it would be real nice to have that. It's such a clean recording. To hear that on on CD would be great for me. Just everything's recorded. The guitar's clean. The upright bass and the acoustic drums. It's just well recorded, and I would love to have a really clean copy of that. And like I said, I don't buy vinyl except a couple exceptions. Things that did not come out on CD. And here's a recent acquisition. I shouldn't be spending money. I'm unemployed, but I did buy this recently. With Dom Aramao. I got this. This is still sealed. I haven't even opened it yet. Shortly after I bought it, I found that the whole album's online, but I got a copy anyway. And I like these guys. And again, August '77. This is one of those. I know it still says Japo/ECM. I don't know. It's something about those Japo records that they don't want to come out on CDs. In fact, I don't think there was a compilation that ECM put out on CD, but I don't think they've released any of the full albums out individually on CD. Ernst Lemon-Gruber on saxophones, Christy Doran, who I love, on guitars, Bobby Bury on upright bass, and Freddie Studer on drums. Actually, I think that I have an earlier album by them. Why isn't it up in that stack? I don't know. It should be, but I can't find it. Maybe that's why. I have another album, and it should be in that stack because it hasn't come out on CD. And that other album that I bought by them was the first time that I heard any of those guys. This one I just bought within the last month or so. Odd cover. Look at it. Totally rusted out truck. A cutout, but a still sealed cutout. So, like I said, I'm not a vinyl collector, really. I love my vinyl that I have, that I bought. I'm not really looking to get rid of any of it. I prefer music on CDs. But there's a couple exceptions, and that, that's, like I said, the things that I buy that have never been re-released on CD. And then there's a handful of others. I'm going to show a couple examples here. Oh, I missed an album. Show one of these. This was given to me by Mr. Special friend, Mr. Carm. And this was an interview. Michael Bierlow on guitars, solo guitar album, really nice, pretty album. I put this up shortly after I got it. I copied it into my computer. I burned a CD of it, and I put it up. But it goes way back in my videos. I put the full album up. A few days after I put it up, I got a copyright strike, and a bunch of it was blocked. And then I went back sometime later, and when I kind of tested it around, I heard all the audio again. I don't know what happened there. These are all originals, because I know the thing with the audio getting blocked a lot of times, if you put on an album by one artist, you may find that some songs will be blocked out and others won't. And that'll be in the case of if you have somebody doing standards. Whoever wrote or owns the rights to those standards may want them taken, may want the audio taken off. And other songs written by other folks or originals by the guy that recorded the album, they're okay with it, I guess, and they don't take them off. So that's why, you could actually put up an album. I did that with Dave Brubeck. I think I pulled the video. because I had Dave Brubeck playing music in the background, and there was a couple songs in there that ended up getting the audio blocked, which included me talking and everything. So I think I took it down. And that was because they were standards, and I guess the rights were owned by somebody who doesn't want it being posted, kind of thing, while other songs they were fine with. So this was a nice thing. This is a small independent label, again, Inner Light Records, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Probably something, that the artist put together, or a couple different artists. April 1986, so this has not been... Pretty sure this hasn't been. I don't think I would have put this up on the shelf if this had come out on CD. I could be wrong. I don't think it did make it to CD though. And there are exceptions. See how unprepared I am. And that is, there's some album covers that I love so much that I still want to get the vinyl, simply for the artwork, not really for the music aspect. I showed this before. This is one of them. Miles Davis. I've had the music on this particular album. This is one of his original Prestige albums with Red Garland on piano and John Coltrane, Paul Chambers on bass, Philly Joe Jones on drums. This is from about 1955. Now, I had this music first on a twofer in the 70s, that came out in the 70s, so I had it on vinyl already, but it sure as hell didn't have this cover. And subsequent years, I bought all my Miles stuff on CD. So I also have this on CD. But in between, before the CD era, when the OJC original jazz classics started hitting the shelves, just before the CD era started, they began to reissue the albums instead of twofer or in a twofer combination, or trying to repackage these older albums with modern artwork, I think in an attempt to confuse the buyer into thinking, oh, it's a new Miles Davis album, let me pick it up, and then they realize, oh, this is 20 years old, it's an older repackaging of something. The OJCs went in the opposite direction, and they were really, really successful. At least in America they were. And what they did is they went back to the packaging that they originally came out in, so you could essentially own a pristine copy of what it was like to go into the record store in 1955 or 56, and if you were to buy this Miles session, this is what it looked like on this Prestige. I love that cover. So I bought this strictly for it's still sealed. I bought this years ago. I have the music, and even the font looks old. No borders or anything. It's just so cool. I love this art. This is the only thing that makes me buy albums nowadays, for the most part. Like I said, unless they're things that haven't been released on CD. And I have a few things in my want list that I want to get that are out there on vinyl. I want to get pristine copies though, and I want to do it obviously when I have money. Here's one of them. Wes Montgomery. I love this. This is the original album art of an album that came out after he passed away, called Willow Weep For Me. Most of this is a live session. And oddly enough, these sessions were on the very first album. The very first album by Wes Montgomery I bought was one of those twofer albums put out in the late 70s. And it had most, if not all, of the music from this particular single album on that twofer. So it's actually something I already had on vinyl. Many years later, I bought it on CD. And just a few years ago, they actually re-released, this is the first time, even though this is on CD, they released it in its original format. So it's a single disc, the way it originally came out, the original packaging, but of course it's CD versus LP. I'm a sucker for that cover. I just love it. The tree with the hanging, I don't know, is that Spanish moss? It's beautiful. Hanging right into the water there. And this lovely green tint that they put on the camera, and I guess this is the original font and everything. They had those sessions in the can, and they released them sometime after Wes passed away on album, a couple years later. And then I subsequently bought them when they got repackaged in the 70s, like I said. But I just love that. I want to get, that's one of the things I want to get the original vinyl of, just because this is the way the CD comes packaged, nice OB strip and everything. I guess this is a Japanese Verve import. Copies are easy to get though, or at least they were a few years ago. And I just bought it for a couple reasons, but the cover art just struck me when I saw it. That's one that I really want to get on LP just for the art. The other one that I want to get on LP, I have a very small wish list of things I want to get on LP, is a Randy Weston album called Carnival. It's an album recorded live at the Montreux Jazz Festival. You know, I'm willing to bet that a bunch of people out there may even have this on vinyl, the vinyl junkie collectors that prefer to buy their albums on vinyl. This is recorded at the Montreux Jazz Festival, July 5th, 1974. Black Lion Records. You know, this might not even be in print anymore, but I know there's copies out there, a lot of copies out there. Randy Weston, Billy Harper on tenor sax and flute, William Allen on bass, Don Moye on drums and percussion, and Steve Berrios on congas and percussion. Not the best session, but this is one of my favorite album covers I've ever seen. Look at that painting. Isn't that fantastic? And I know this, obviously, coming from 74, came out on vinyl. I've seen vinyl copies out there. I really, myself, I want to get a real pristine, still sealed vinyl of this if I can. I love that. That painting is just absolutely kind of this like overcast day, and it's just awesome. It's, oddly enough, probably the weakest Randy Weston album I have, only because it was one of those live outdoor recordings, and you know they often don't sound good, and it's kind of a muddy recording, and it's noisy, and you've got two percussionists. It's not that the music's bad, but it's recorded, I guess, the best that they could do, you know, outdoor open air microphones, and it doesn't sound good, and even the material isn't the best I've heard from Randy. But that is the best album cover he ever. That's one of my favorite album covers of all time. I just love that painting, and I see copies out there, so on vinyl. So that's another one that I just want to get just for the, you know, that's one that I would actually frame and hang on the wall kind of thing. So I didn't mean to go this long, and I don't have a whole lot of albums left to show, you know, but you know, maybe I'll sometime in the future come out and grab another third, and then I'll have, you know, maybe one more video in the future to do showing that stuff. You know, the vinyl that I have that still hasn't come out on CD. Whatever. Okay, guys, I hope everybody's doing well. Yeah, you know, it's weird when you're not working, like, your time management still sucks. I got people's videos I haven't seen that are favorites of mine. You know, people, I love to watch their videos, and I just didn't get to them. Or I got to them and I never left a comment, you know? I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. Okay, guys. It's raining even harder now, but that's life. And I guess, you know, I think the sun is due to come out. And boy, am I tempted to put this entire album on. I wonder what would happen if I put this album that's playing in the background up. If I put it up for everybody to listen to, because it's such a fantastic album. I'm tempted. I don't know. I might try it. It's a good album. Adelhard Reudinger, who I got an email from once. I don't know why Adelhard Reudinger was not signed to ECM to record many more albums. This album is so typically a great ECM album from the time, from like 1981, from that era. I would have had that guy in the studio like they did with Eberhard Weber or something like that, or Ralph Towner. Have him do an album a year if he could, you know, whatever. I don't know why. I don't know why they didn't have any more stuff from him on the label. It's a great album, though. Okay, guys. I'll be back soon. And thanks for watching. Take care.